Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can.
okay, great. So I'm just going to do a very quick introduction and then we'll just go right into it.
Okay, cool.
All right. So, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Lady Balde and I work with Business Day. Welcome to another episode of Scaling Through Crisis, which is a web series that features inspiring entrepreneurs as they meet the challenge head on. Scaling Through Crisis amplifies the stories of the small business owners, startup founders, and scale up entrepreneurs that are thinking big and finding opportunity in crisis. This show is brought to you by Endeavor, which is a mission driven global organization that believes that job creation, innovation, and overall prosperity flourish where there is a robust support for high impact entrepreneurs. So, welcome again, everybody, and it's a pleasure to have you all with us. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Babs Ogundeyi, who is the CEO and the co founder of Nigeria's first full service digital only bank, licensed by the central bank with a mission to make banking more accessible and affordable, as well as more rewarding, and that is Kuda Bank. So, Babs, welcome to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Most welcome. So, how are you doing? How is I tend to ask my guests how is COVID-19 treating you, but we're kind of in a transition of people are going back to work. So, how has COVID-19 been for you?
Um,
First of all.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think even though people may be going back to the offices, it's still here. COVID is still with us, and I guess we're getting better at learning how to live with it. Um, so, it's been a different kind of. We've had to readjust to sort of how we live generally,
Right.
and yeah, and I think that's kind of same for everybody, irrespective of what you do in your life, what kind of
Mhm.
job you do, just our social interactions, the fact that you go out and now I remember the first time I wore a mask, in Lagos, I think I even wore it to the office, and a lot of my colleagues and staff team members, kind of chuckled a bit. But kind of now it's just like
It's like
it's
the norm.
it's yeah. If you're not wearing a mask, you're the abnormal one, So
Right.
like,
Right.
the,
It's definitely the new normal.
yeah.
Definitely
So,
new normal. So Babs, could you tell us a little bit about your company, Kuda Bank?
yeah. So yeah, Kuda. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's basically a full service digital only bank. The whole idea behind it is to have financial services that is really affordable and really accessible. There's been a lot of talk, not just in Nigeria but globally, about sort of the lack of financial services or the lack of access to financial services. Um,
Mhm.
and for us, we believe a lot of that is to do with price and accessibility, especially in emerging market, especially in Africa. There's a lot of, it's not a surprise that, half of the world's unbanked or underbanked is in Africa. We're a very price sensitive sort of society. So for us, we really wanted to build something that would serve a purpose that basically makes financial services, really affordable, and you don't really get cheaper than free. So that's kind of our philosophy, and that's the driving force behind what we do. So we've built this sort of digital only bank that's sort of accessible to you right in the palm of your hands. You can access it via mobile app. We're on Android and iOS. We have a web version now, again, to improve access. And very soon we'll be rolling out sort of the USSD channels as well. So it's really about focusing on access and the philosophy around price as well. Everything we do is so customer centric that the most important thing to customers in this region is price. So we have to figure out how to make money. So the point is give the customers what they want, and then let's go to the strategy room and figure out, okay, how do we even make money from this thing.
Right.
So that's what Kuda is. It's you get a full bank account, you open it within a couple of minutes. you can transfer to anybody in Nigeria, that has a bank account or some kind of digital wallet. It helps you really understand your finances by teaching you how to sort of save smartly. It has automated budgets. We're coming up with a credit product within the next, few weeks. You should see some overdraft products on the Kuda app. So it's this just all inclusive financial service product that is really simple to use and really easy to understand. And that's it, really.
No, I mean that's really amazing. There's definitely a market for digital based banks. So I wonder, how did the global pandemic affect you, if at all, given that you are a digital bank?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, in terms of, I would say, operations and how we work, maybe in terms of strategy and stuff like that internally, you know, um, how we interact with ourselves within the team,
Mhm.
yeah, it's impacted us greatly. We haven't been able to see each other. We haven't been able to, have some of the big arguments we have in the office, but, as far as the service we provide to customers, that hasn't changed. So we're still accessible. So the whole ethos of Kuda is for it to be accessible,
Mhm.
regardless. And I think the pandemic, if anything, has highlighted, that strength. So it's literally sort of the whole lockdown and COVID is pretty much just, accelerated, digital transformation generally.
Mhm.
So this was coming anyway. So I guess we can say that what should probably take a couple of years is pretty much being compressed into a couple of months. So while it's good for business for us, I mean, we're opening more and more accounts, on a daily basis, but it also means we have to sort of ramp up operations internally. And of course, with the lack of movement, it's very difficult to sort of recruit, resource, get staff and onboard staff and stuff like that. So on the one hand, it's great for the business, but internally, it's a big challenge to just try and figure things out.
Right.
Yeah, and we've done quite a few onboarding over Zoom.
Mhm.
Just
Zoom
onboarding.
seems to be everyone's new best friend. It's
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's
everybody's
again,
friend. Yes.
that same concept of accelerating digital transformation. Now, even the central bank are doing meetings over Zoom. I've had meetings with them on Zoom. So, it's
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, that's really good. I mean, so you mentioned that you've experienced a bit some challenges, with the transition from being able to see your colleagues and your staff on a daily basis to now working from home and working primarily on Zoom and online. So can you maybe talk about some of the ways that your leadership style has had to change in this time?
Um, So I wouldn't say it's changed necessarily. Like the fundamentals are still the same. I mean, we run a very sort of inclusive organization. I just happen to be the one that, you know, depending on which lens you look at, was brave enough or stupid enough to kind of take on this challenge of sort of building a brand from scratch. But in reality, it's being built by sort of everybody that works at Kuda. So it's very inclusive. Everybody has an opinion. Ultimately, a decision needs to be made at times, and that hasn't really changed. I mean, it's just what has changed is just how we interact. So we're doing a lot more sort of now. WhatsApp calls, Zoom. All the digital channels. But the philosophy is still the same. We still have our sprint meetings, a couple of times a week. We still, everything is still, the same and running as clockwork. And I guess also kind of in terms of productivity, I would say, in a funny way, I'm kind of doing a lot more work than, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
it's literally wake up, laptop, boom, boom, boom. Then, you
Yeah.
know, I find that it's the last thing I do before I sleep. I put my laptop down beside the bed.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's productivity has increased a lot more, at least for me. But yeah, the style I wouldn't say has changed. It's just the channel of communication that's been affected.
Okay, that makes sense. And in terms of innovations that you've had to implement during this time, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've been innovating on because of
Yeah,
the pandemic?
yeah. So I mean, sorry, can you hear? Can you hear?
I can
There's
hear
a
you. I
yeah.
can hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we hadn't really had to sort of change a lot because it really does feel like we were built for this moment.
Right.
But some of the things that we've kind of done is, I mean, I guess just to sort of support the movement of sort of like alleviating the issues around COVID is, we had this whole fundraising thing that we did, we called it the Kuda COVID Fund. Um, and yeah, that was good because, it was really transparent. A lot of people could just come in, see how much we were raising. I mean, it could be anonymous if you wanted. So that was like a really, I mean, as simple as it seems, but just having that transparency around fundraising, was like really cool for me to see. Typically, we hear a lot of, oh, we're fundraising for X, and nobody really knows how the money was put
What the
together,
process is,
or
right?
where it's going. So to have it done this way, I think kind of also made it like super successful. We had people, I mean, we posted it on LinkedIn. We had people from all over the world that were just like donating just because of the transparency. So
Mm-hmm.
for us at Kuda, I guess, which one of the, I would say, maybe not really an innovation, but is just being transparent in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there are going to be there are challenges, as a bank, you don't always want to admit that you have problems, but
Right.
I mean, it's good to let your customers know this, So we've kind of embraced that even more now, just
Mm-hmm.
sharing things that, that would help customers understand situations much better. At the end of the day, it's their money, so,
That's a great point.
if you can be super
Yeah.
honest with them, there's no perfect company. So if you get to the point where you can see your imperfections and believe that you can overcome it, I think it helps the relationship between the company and the customer. Um, but generally, Kuda is an innovative company. That's why we were built in the first place, to do things differently and to find solutions for sort of pressing problems, like access to finance or access to affordable financial services. And yeah, I think COVID has really kind of just brought that more to the fore,
Mm-hmm.
with what we're trying to do.
No, fantastic. I mean, it's good to see that innovation, it's is embedded into has been embedded into your company from the beginning. So, like you said, it's almost like you were prepared. You were almost born for this moment. So that's really great. So I'd like to pivot a little bit and talk about a little bit about inclusion and kind of financial inclusion. So I was reading and I saw that your mission is to give as many Africans, access to finance, literacy, and things of that sort. Why inclusion is important to also talk a little bit about your opinion of the financial inclusion states of the country a little bit.
Okay, so it was cut off for a bit, but I think what I heard was why financial inclusion is important to
Right.
us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the state of the status
Your
quo of financial
yeah,
inclusion.
your opinion of the current states of the financial inclusion states of the country.
Okay. All right. So that's two questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, why is it important to us? Look, there's no sort of economy that can thrive without sort of a robust and inclusive sort of financial system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be in a position where, you know, financial services is only available to certain privileged, demography of society. We don't want to be in a situation where, you know, sort of good service and ability to get sort of good rates and good offers is
Mhm.
only available to a certain few. That defeats the whole purpose of financial services. Just because you own a bank account doesn't really make you banked. If you're not able to do sort of the full spectrum of financial services, then you're not really banked. You just have a bank account. So
Mhm.
for us, it's really important, and we believe that we have an opportunity here to create something that is for social good, but at the
Mhm.
same time, create something that's also leans towards a capitalist nature. So we can be good and make money at the same time.
At the
Um,
same time, right?
so yeah, so it's important, and in life, you kind of just, you want to live you want to impact it and be purposeful, so for us, this could actually helps us to do that, to fulfill interests on both sides. um, Now, in terms of sort of the current state of financial inclusion, I think there's a lot being done. I think, and this question is regularly asked. I don't necessarily have all like the stats and whatnot, but definitely there has been improvements. More people are there are more options to
Mhm.
be financially included.
Mhm.
Um, but and one thing I will always say is, I think for us to really kind of move the needle and shift into sort of an area that we see significant impact, there needs to be sort of understanding and communication within all the different stakeholders that make sort of the whole financial system tick.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and now, over the last few years, there's been kind of what we may call the new kids on the block, which are sort of the fintech guys,
Mhm.
need to be included in these conversations. So once and it is difficult because they're just from different sort of school of thoughts, different age range, different beliefs, just different, so many things different, and to kind of work together in sync, it is a challenge, but I think it's something that needs to be encouraged. There's a lot being done towards that, but I think it can be better. If we're able to do that, um, I strongly believe that interests can be aligned, and it would only become it would translate to the end user, and that will greatly improve access to financial services. The technology is there, the regulation should support, but also, and I say this all the time, regulation is absolutely vital, because at the end of the day, if anything happens, is the same people that are going to say, hey, but regulators, you didn't protect us, so it is very, very important. But we need to find that balance where we can all work together, with traditional banks, with regulators, with fintech, with tech community, just
Mhm.
everyone putting together. Um, and if you do that, then this problem will be solved. I have no doubt in my mind. But yeah, it's all about communication for me.
No, no. I mean, you make a great point. Financial inclusion can only really be achieved through, effective collaboration,
Yeah.
by all the stakeholders. It's interesting. We are in the year 2020, and the World Bank had, a goal that, a bunch of countries had to achieve 80% financial inclusion by the year 2020. So I think Nigeria, I think we're about 42%
Yeah.
financially included. So we definitely have a long way to go. I don't think that Nigeria is different to other developing countries in terms of trying to get the levels up. But like you said, I definitely think that collaboration has to be like the most important thing that people focus on in order for us to include everybody, like you said.
Totally.
Okay, so thank you so much for your points for your points on that. So I wonder, so who would you say is the typical Kuda customer?
Um, okay, so you know, the way I see it is, there's banking is a relationship game,
Right.
So what we're looking to do is to build relationships with the next generation.
Okay.
unfortunately for us, they represent the large majority of Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, I don't know how accurate it is, but, again, there's no smoke without fire. About
Mm-hmm.
70% of Nigerians are under 30, I mean, give or take,
Give or take, yes, yes.
yeah, so it's the majority. So that's really our target market. It's the youth. The average customer is sort of millennial focused, but it's also class agnostic. So it's not, again, with social media, um, you can the average 20 something year old in Isseyin in Oyo State, for example, kind
Mm-hmm.
of wants the same thing as the guy in Lagos.
Right.
They both know who the top football player is, or the music artist. They both have similar sort of ideology about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But again, difference might just be sort of level of affluence or whatnot. But essentially, they want the same things. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the market we're going for. It's very millennial driven, very sort of millennial Gen Z driven. Um, and regardless of sort of social status, the moment you can afford a phone, or the way I kind of look at it is, are you on WhatsApp? Yes,
Right.
then you're a Kuda customer. Like if you could, you know, um, but we also filter that down towards even people without sort of smartphones. Even though we strongly believe that smartphones will become, it is already mainstream, is already the norm, but feature phones will become obsolete eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, why do you want to keep building a business around something that will eventually become obsolete, even though right now it's still in play, but in the future it's not going to be. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like how we see our customers.
Very interesting. Okay, so what would you say? So, because most of your customers, like you said, are young people, millennials, under 30s, forward moving and thinking people. So, what would you say are some of the issues that millennials have when it comes to personal finance?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, before I answer that, not to say that we don't want older customers, I mean, we do,
Right.
but it's just that the probability of them coming, to use Kuda as a primary account is just lower.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that, we understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of your question about sort of problems they face, I think, a lot of it is around, just understanding, what is available, understanding how to save, how to budget, just what is available.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our job to make things as simple as possible, and as informative as possible. So it's not just a case of, oh, give me your money, and let me come and do deposits or whatnot. If you can keep helping the consumer to understand their money better, and train them over time, then by default they're going to be with you. So that's kind of how we look at it. As I said, it's a relationship thing, and we have to win trust.
Right.
And it's not something you do in an instant. It's the more you teach, the more you let people understand, the more they trust you.
Right.
So that's kind of, I think, for me, Nigerian millennials, I mean, look, a lot of people have been burnt a lot in the past. There's been different things about, oh, how can I, like these quick money things. I mean, all different schemes. So trust is hard. And I don't blame people for not trusting easily. But it's our mission to make sure that we provide services that is so simple, they can over time begin to lean on it and trust it, and And that's where you have like, so it becomes less of sort of like, oh, you're just a marketer or marketing people. You're actually providing something that's fundamental and intrinsic to people's lives, so that's kind of how we see it. I think if we can achieve that, you know, I, around money, I don't think millennials, at least in Nigeria, would have, it would definitely reduce the issues. I mean, there's a few people trying to do that, but we believe, sort of the bundle and the package that we have, it's so all encompassing that it just makes sense.
Yeah. And it also seems like you're trying to build genuine relationships with your customers. So that's really good. So I would like to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about yourself and just a bit about your entrepreneurship journey. So you have strong expertise in the financial services sector. You previously spent some time auditing and advising some of Africa's biggest banks as an engagement manager at PwC. And you were also a one-time special advisor on finance to the governor of Oyo State.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much used your private sector knowledge to raise infrastructural bonds for Oyo State.
Yeah.
You also founded two other companies, including Motor Trader, which was the first classified car magazine in Nigeria, which you sold to a major newspaper. So I'd like to unpack your journey a little bit from then to kind of now being the CEO and co-founder of Kuda Bank. So I don't know if you want to take us, from the beginning, kind of what you studied, and how the experience that you garnered over time has led you to where you are today.
So yeah, I've always kind of believed that entrepreneurial activities will happen in my life, always. But it does take a lot of courage to kind of just execute that. So I wouldn't say I've been the typical entrepreneur that sort of went after uni or dropped out of uni and built a unicorn, or no. you know I kind of just went through the process and tried to build a career and have some kind of stability and understanding of exactly what I wanted to do. As you said, I spent most of my working career in employment in PricewaterhouseCoopers. It just so happened that most of my clients were banks. So I got to learn and understand, about banking. I got to meet a lot of the CEOs who, at some point were friends. So that was really good for me in terms of just general understanding and knowing what makes a bank tick. And then working in government in Oyo State, also helped a great deal in just understanding a different subset of people and minds. And, public sector is very different from private sector. And then not just from a colleague perspective, but also just from who you're serving perspective, and that's where the kind of sort of social orientation comes in, like it's all about providing social good. There's this whole social economy that you have to just, retweak your mind to. Unlike in the private sector, it's very sort of profit driven.
Right.
So that was really helpful for me as well. And, all of that was what I brought into Kuda to combine those experiences. And in between, I had, always experimented with, entrepreneurial activities. Most of them failed, by the way, but we learned from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one I got lucky with, Motor Trader, which my co-founder and I at the time, which is also happened to be my cousin, we basically, I wanted to buy a car. I'd actually recently just moved to Nigeria and I wanted to buy a car, and I had to go to Bega, I had to go to all these different places. I was like, I just want to buy. Isn't there like a list somewhere? and internet wasn't that sort of, adoption, online adoption wasn't that big at the time. So we literally just, we set up this magazine. We went around taking pictures and just, put the photos in a magazine. And for distribution, we used to go around all the vendors and put the, magazine in the newspaper. And
Like newspapers,
yeah,
yeah.
and one time the owner of one of those newspapers opened it, saw the magazine, and was like, what's this? And that's how we started talking, and eventually bought it out.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, um, so all those experiences definitely help, in building out Kuda. We've learned so much in terms of, just perseverance, being prepared. Nothing is ever guaranteed. And literally you don't know what's coming tomorrow, but once you're prepared, um, and you kind of just understand that there's going to be challenges, but you're going to be able to resolve it. It just kind of makes things possible.
Right.
And it's never easy, and I say this all the time, it's never easy. I mean, like a lot of people kind of sort of talk to me and say, oh yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur. Oh, you guys are, it's so cool. I'm like, there's nothing cool about this. So, but but if it's really what you want, and because it's really not glamorous, it's not cool, it's work in the trenches a lot of the time. So you need to be prepared, and you need to have the passion to do it.
Right.
um, and that kind of just overrides everything else. That just keeps you going. And for me, I would say those are kind of like the most important things. Being prepared and just being totally in love and passionate about what it is that you're doing and what you're trying to solve. That way you're unstoppable, and even with challenges, because you're gonna get challenges. Yeah, so that's what I would say,
Okay.
and all these experiences have shaped me to be able to sort of deal with those challenges that will come.
No, right. I mean, it definitely seems like your varied experiences have contributed to you being able to open a bank such as Kuda. So I wonder, so I read that so one of the things that is very difficult for startups or companies is raising finance. Obviously that's kind of, people always have great ideas, but finance seems to be the roadblock that a lot of people seem to face. I read that Kuda has raised $1.6 million. So congratulations for that. And can you talk to us a little bit about, what that process was like in terms of raising finance for your business? How did you get the startup capital? Talk to us a little bit about raising finance for your business.
Okay, so yeah, we raised a pre-seed of 1.6. That was last year, April, May, or something like that. Um, so look, it's always there's no kind of one way or a certain way to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just about, making sure that, you have first, you have a product that, or an idea or a product or whatever it is that is viable.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to ask the question, and this is a question I always ask myself: if I had money, would I invest in it? So if you can answer that objectively, and just ask yourself, okay, what would make me invest in this? So if you can answer those questions, then, and you believe that you're not this kind of strange, person, that you're only yourself, there are more people like you around, then the chances are, you will get funding. And then the question you have to answer is, okay, where am I going to find these people like me that, coincidentally also have money to invest? So it's just going through it like that, and just trying to identify, people that share sort of the same philosophy about, the way you look at things, the way you look, we talk about financial inclusion. So, the people that actually want to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that, especially the early stage is usually the best way. And then, after that, when you have traction, when you have, you're making money, then it becomes less about that. It becomes more about, people that want to make more money. So
Mhm.
if you build a good business, you're going to have people coming to you to invest in you.
Right.
But the beginning is always the hardest, because literally you have an idea. And I think, for me personally, and also, for my co-founder, who's also the CTO,
Mhm.
we, based on the fact that, we weren't kind of college dropouts and whatnot, the risk was less. It's a nicer story to be like, yeah,
Yeah,
you done built a, but
but the story is important too, I think, because I think that yeah. Mhm.
the story is important. And our story is, look, we had worked, we understand the space, we've proven ourselves in employment. So, we're less of a risk to
Right.
invest in, you know.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and some people, bit the carrot, and here we are, so, and it's going to be like that, throughout the lifespan of the company, until you get to a point where, you never need to raise capital. And I don't believe there's a company that, or there are many companies that never need to raise capital. It's just a
Mhm.
different kind of capital. Maybe you do a private placement, or you do an IPO or whatever, but,
Mhm.
you need capital to keep,
To keep scaling
accelerating growth. Yeah.
essentially,
So,
right?
so, so yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I know that you, before we go on to questions and kind of the wrap up of the interview, you mentioned earlier that you had a couple of companies. You started a couple of companies that weren't as successful as Kuda is right now. So I wonder if there's anything that you learned from those companies not succeeding or failing that you could share.
Yeah. I mean, I think timing is important. It has to be the right time. Um, it has to be a, you need to be building something that is needed. And that, not needed by friends and family, but needed by a whole lot of people, Um, so just because it's a problem for you doesn't mean it's a problem for millions of people.
Right.
So you need to be able to, you know, build something or find something that is, needed by lots and lots of people. Then you have something. And then you need to be prepared to do whatever it takes to execute that idea. Because those are the two main things, really. Everything else is, I mean, it can be cool, it can be, whatever, but the moment it doesn't have enough people to take advantage of it, and the
Mhm.
moment you are not able to execute it, then there's nothing.
Mhm.
So for me, I've just learned that, yeah, there needs to be a big market, and you need to be able to deliver as a founder on that idea. And then everything else is kind of a little bit of luck, like the timing thing. You can't really predict it. Like, I mean, Zoom has been popular, but, I mean, now Zoom is like amazingly popular. I mean, who could have
Mhm.
predicted that, in
Really.
the month of March 2020, oh, you're gonna have this product called Zoom and it's gonna take over, like, but you needed to be ready, you needed to be there, and, to be able to take advantage. And again, going back to Kuda, we needed to be ready. People needed, we couldn't predict that there'll be issues with sort of lockdowns and going to the bank and stuff like that, but we were ready, and we're able to execute on that. So you do need a little bit of luck, with timing and stuff like that, and people to believe in you, and see what you're seeing. I think one of the biggest challenges is, for you to be super successful and to have like a big lead in other people coming into a certain space, is you're literally predicting the future. And if you're predicting the future, it's not going to be obvious to a lot of people, which means it's not going to be obvious to a lot of people that are going to fund you. So it's kind of like, okay, how do I balance that,
Mhm.
and make them see the future the way I see it? But, so that's also an art. You need to kind of, be able to, present that in such a way that there's always a kind of like a aha moment. Oh, right, I see, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but but yeah, but those are the two most important things I've learned. You know, make sure there's a market and be ready to execute.
To execute. And I like the last point that you made in terms of being able to communicate your vision, because sometimes people have such great ideas in their heads, but when they speak about it and try to explain it to other people, it doesn't really come across the way that they might have envisioned it in their heads. So effective communication is definitely key. So thank you for those points. And speaking of future, I'm sure you get this question all the time, but I have to ask it. What are your thoughts? Like, what is the future of banking? What does the future of banking look like?
I think we're already seeing the future of banking, even amongst traditional banks. And you know, and it's not just banking. It's the way we live our lives. You know, it's digital. It's been used so many times, but really, it really is. You know, so how can you have sort of personalized relationships without brick and mortar? You know, use understand each customer individually to a T, almost even more than they understand themselves. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's digital. You have to be able to leverage on data. You have to be able to, you know, kind of, you know, read things, you know, by behavior and whatnot. And, you know, I strongly believe that banking is about relationship. So, you know, and that's why I guess, you know, if you look at our situation in Nigeria, you know, you have what you call relationship officers, you know, probably
Right.
make up most of the sort of staff strength in a typical traditional bank. So it's how can we swap that, you know, that relationship officer and have it. Some people are using bots to do it. Some people are, you know, but it's definitely, you know, some form of digitization, and we're already seeing it. I don't even think it's the future anymore. It's the present now.
The present.
Yeah, you know, fintechs were not the first fintechs. The banks were the first fintechs. You know,
Right.
we had online banking before anyway,
That's true.
but it's just, you know, what we're saying is, you know, this is not about just online banking or whatnot. It's about how you see customers. It's about how customer centric are you? How are you prepared to let go of sort of the capitalist mindset and just, you know, make the customer happy at all costs? You know, it's different. You're still using technology. You're still using, you know, it's still digital, but that mindset determines how you build your business.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, yes, digital, but I think the new future, the current is digitization. It's already here. But for me, the new future is not necessarily about digitization. It's about the mindset. It's about how do you want that relationship to be. So, you know, if we can turn it around and make it all about the customer, then we're going to start seeing sort of better banks and better, you know, financial service providers.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. So we're getting to the stage of the interview where we take a couple of questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. So here I have a question from somebody called Linda. She says, "You're speaking a lot about mindset. How do you correlate that to your employees?" I guess what she means is, how do you pass on the mindset that you have to your employees and to your overall organization so that it's like in sync?
Yeah. So, you know, I think you need to start right from source. So, who are the employees? You know, how were they recruited? You know, what is their perspective on life? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you've gone through that interview process and recruitment process. You already kind of you're basically getting people that, you know, have a shared vision, into what you're preaching. So that should make the job slightly easier. And then, you know, you regularly sort of interact, you regularly discuss, you know, and people will see it. If you know, nobody really at the beginning, people don't really want to work somewhere where they don't believe in what is being done. Um,
Right. Mm-hmm.
so that kind of takes care of half of it, and then you just need to keep reinforcing it. and at Kuda, to be honest, a lot of the employees are actually customers, so we all kind of just keep challenging ourselves. The mission is, what will make the customer happy? What will make the
Mhm.
customer happy? So everybody asks that question. We've had situations where team members come, they'll storm into sort of strategy sessions or go to the dev guys and say, oh, this thing doesn't work for me,
Actually towards
so
the office. And
so it's kind of like that. You have to basically just keep reinforcing it and practice what you keep preaching.
Mhm.
Everybody will buy in, if you're able to do that.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we have another question here. Somebody's asking, traditionally speaking, bank CEOs tend to be a little bit older. What is it like to be a young bank CEO?
Okay, I think the first thing is you assume I'm young. Um,
Okay, actually, that's a good point.
um,
We're making the person's assumptions.
but I mean, yeah. Look, I would say I'm younger than most of the CEOs of traditional banks. But look, it's not a. I don't think it's necessarily an age thing. It's there needs to be, obviously, look, there needs to be a level of maturity in the way we do things and conduct ourselves. If you have the experience, then you're good to go.
Mhm.
I spent many years telling these bank CEOs how to run their banks.
Right.
So yes, if that has happened, then surely I should be able to put that knowledge into effect. With running my own company. But yeah, it's not something I think about. It's just, we're just trying to build something that is really functional and is beneficial to as many people that need it. Really.
Mhm. Right, that makes sense. And I think your career path was, I mean, the fact that you were, like you said, you were in financial services to be able to do what you're doing now at Kuda. So that makes sense. So we have another question here. How do you retain your best talent in times of uncertainty?
Um, wow, that's a tough question. Um, so I think it's kind of both. You know, there's uncertainty for in the country, there's uncertainty in the business, there's also uncertainty with the talent. So we're all uncertain. So talent you know talent shouldn't want to leave during uncertainty, because there are no certainties when you get out there.
Right.
So that's, yeah, that's one thing. But I think generally, you just need to keep reinforcing and you know reinforcing the reason they came to work and help build the company in the first place.
Mhm.
um, so long as the vision is still a shared vision, and you have an environment that is comfortable and conducive, um, you know I think things will generally be fine. It would not be fine for absolutely everybody, but the general theme has to be an environment that is comfortable, that is understanding. It doesn't mean you won't work hard. It doesn't mean you won't have work into 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, which we regularly do. But it just means that you understand people's like sort of challenges, and as a business and as a CEO, it's our responsibility to try and help make that better. And I believe, so long as you're not always going to be able to fix everything, but so long as that understanding is there, that look, we will do as an organization whatever it takes to make you comfortable, to make your life sort of easier in whatever capacity, then people are generally accepting of that. Then anything else is around, money or whatever. Look, if you can afford it, you pay more. If you can't afford it, I mean, this is nothing you can do.
Right.
You know.
Work a little bit, and hopefully one day you'll get there, right?
Exactly. So help make this the highest paid company that it can be, and then then you're certain, then you have guarantees.
Mhm.
So, but if you keep leaving, then you're going to start again in another company, and there are no guarantees anywhere. At
Mhm.
the end of the day. So
All right. So, it's been really interesting talking to you. You've had a very interesting journey. I mean, it's a lot of times when we speak to entrepreneurs, like you mentioned, we like to hear the story. Oh, I dropped out of school and then I did this, and I started a company with, But it's interesting to see that you were someone who was working. You were in employment. You tried a few businesses here and there, and then now you're here at Kuda Bank, trying to give access to finance and access to, I guess, a better life to Africans. So that's really great. So tell us how people can download the app. How do people get involved with Kuda?
yeah, so for customers, just go on Kuda, go on the App Store or the Play Store, Google Play Store, and just type Kuda. Or you can type Kuda Microfinance Bank, because we have a microfinance banking license.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll find us, and then just download the app, and within 2 minutes, follow the instructions, and you'll get a bank account. You can open an account without your BVN, but it's better to open it with your BVN.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really simple. Literally within a couple of minutes, you have a full working bank account. We'll send you your card, your physical debit card. We'll send it to your address. And, that's it. You have a bank, you start using it. And then, if you want to get involved in other ways, in terms of sort of maybe partnerships or working at Kuda, we have, go on the website. There are different sort of channels that you can reach us, www.kudabank.com. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of information on the website.
Oh, fantastic. Babs Ogunde, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Scaling Through Crisis. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you and seeing what Kuda Bank does in the coming months and coming years as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, and I hope you go and open your Kuda account immediately after this.
Absolutely, I will. Absolutely. All right then, Babs. Have a great afternoon, and
You
do
too.
take care.
You
All
too.
right, bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so very much for tuning in to another episode of Scaling Through Crisis, brought to you by Business Day and Endeavor Nigeria. My name is Lele Balde. Thank you very much. I had a great time speaking to Babs Ogundeyi, who is the CEO and co-founder of Kuda Bank, which is a digital first bank. He's had a very interesting career path, one that started at PwC, Pricewaterhouse Coopers, and he worked in financial services there. He had a few businesses that he did upon moving back to Nigeria, and now he is the founder and CEO of Kuda Bank. So I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Scaling Through Crisis, and the next edition is going to be on Tuesday, June 23rd. And that will be at 2 p.m. And I look forward to seeing you all there. And again, thank you for tuning in. And please do visit www.businessday.ng and consider supporting our journalism by subscribing on the website. So you can get access to all of our articles and all of our reports and in-depth analysis by just going to www.businessday.ng. Thank you very much.